Hey, welcome back, everybody. Another episode of DCF Live, broadcasting to you guys from the DCF studio on Friday, March the 3rd. Hard to believe it's already March, man. This year is already off to a blazing start. But first live stream of the year, so super excited to be back here doing all this with you guys. Been a little while since we've done one of these, but now that football season's over, finally get to take a little bit of a breather, but have just been busy cranking out some of our upcoming YouTube videos. We dropped one last week on a pair of Dior Jordan 4s and how I had a huge stencil mishap when trying to work on this Durabuck panel. And if anybody's worked with a pair of or a set of the Dior print before, I mentioned it in the video, but it is far and away the most intricate designer print out of all of the other ones. Gucci, LV, Dior takes so long to do because all the letters are interlocked, and it just takes so long to weed out that stencil. So that was absolutely crazy. But thank you guys for joining us. Hopefully everybody had a great week. Hopefully everybody is having a great start to the year, since, like I said, this is our first live stream of the year. So hopefully everybody's doing some fun things in the customizing world. We also have, we announced this little contest last year when we hit 200,000 subscribers, where we allowed everybody to send in submissions of their designs that they would like to see me bring to life. And this is something that we did when we hit 100K. And now I finally have both pairs done. And that video, I believe, is coming beginning of April. So just over a month away. Both the shoes are done, videos filmed, but now just getting it edited and stuff. Next Wednesday, we're going to have episode 4 of Customize and Chill, where I'm doing a pair of Goku Jordan 3s. That's always a really fun video series. It was just a funny little idea that Jason and I had one time to just sort of let you feel like you're in the space customizing as well. You know, you get the POV, you get to hear the sights and sounds of customizing. And the first pair we did was a pair of Travis Scott cleats, and we ended up making it like a 24-ish minute video, which is pretty long for YouTube standards. And in 24 minutes, you have to cut out a lot of stuff. So when we went back to do one, we ended up saying, you know what, let's post like a poll on Instagram. Would you guys rather see like a 20-minute version again, or would you be willing to watch like an hour and 20 minutes? Because then we could pack in a lot more stuff. So the second video we did was a pair of Joker Jordan 1s, and that video was probably like an hour, 20 minutes, I think. And it's cool because you get to see more of the process. Now, even though it gets cut down to an hour and 20 minutes, I still end up usually having, 12 to 16 hours of footage. So you're still cutting out a lot of stuff. And this pair that I did, this Goku Jordan 3, these were like 24 hours of footage, and trying to cut it down to an hour 30 isn't easy, but super excited for you guys to check out that video. So I believe I should have the capability to pull up some comments here. Let's see, is that working? Yep. Hey, how you doing, Royalty? Thanks for checking in all the way from the other side of the world, man. Good to see you. How's everybody else doing? Let's see what you guys are asking today. CJ Parnell here says, what is the best technique to splatter paint onto shoes? Would love to hear your answer. So there is a couple different ways that you could go about doing splatter, and it's really going to vary depending on what type of splatter look you want to go for. A general rule that you can follow is the thinner the paint, the tinier the speckle. So if you want that incredibly thin, subtle speckle, like let's say you were maybe trying to do like a galaxy print and you wanted really tiny stars in the sky, you could take some thinned out white paint and just flick it with the edge of a toothbrush. Now, if you're looking for a more, I call it sometimes like a whippy splatter, where there's almost like, like a stringy look to it, that's where you're going to want to do more of a violent whip with a paintbrush, and you want that paint to be a little bit thicker. So we did a video, it's on a pair of soccer cleats, 2019, because we were still in previous studio. and it's on a pair of soccer cleats. And I think we show 3 to 5 different ways on how to do the splatter and how you can get those different variations. So yeah, great question though, CJ. I'm gonna need you guys are gonna have to help me come up with the name, but I'd love to come up with a name for people who are new in the chat. So people who have never joined us for an episode of DCF Live. I think that'd be cool. So we could call those people out, let them know that they're welcome here, and try to make sure that everybody, is able to help them with some of their questions that they might have in the chat. But good to see a lot of the regulars in here. David Lopez, thanks for all the advice. Thanks for tuning in and checking out the videos, David. Really appreciate that. Papa DeJesus in here testing, just making sure that he can leave the comments. Good job, Dad. Those work. Calandria here says, as a beginner, your videos are very informative. Thanks for sharing the info. Glad to share the info. What is the point of having info and having experience and knowledge if you're not willing to share it? Am I right? Let's see. Eddie Diaz here says, I customized a sneaker but went wrong. I would like to know how to fix it. Please, I appreciate your answer. Thanks. Eddie, please let me know in the comments what went wrong on the shoe. So was it that the shoe ended up cracked and, the painting didn't last? Or did it go wrong because something just didn't work out with your design? Did it crack because you painted a certain part of the shoe? Let me know what didn't work for you, Eddie, and we'll try to get you pointed in the right direction. David Lopez says, what can I do to stop getting paintbrush strokes? A few different things there. Paintbrush strokes can be caused for a multitude of reasons. Some of the first things that come to mind for me are not spreading the paint enough. So you really don't need a ton of paint on your brush, surprisingly. Like sometimes I'll see videos pop up here and there of people painting, and they have a ton of paint on their brush, which you just don't need. So, make sure you're really spreading that paint out. Certain colors, like for example, if you were to just grab some Angelus dark blue specifically, and if you were to just paint that right on top of an all white leather Air Force One, you're going to end up with a streaky look. And that's not necessarily paintbrush strokes that you're seeing. You're more seeing an uneven coating. So something that'll really help with that is mixing in some white into some of those early base coats. So just for example, if I were painting an all white Air Force One using the Angelus dark blue, my first coat, I'm probably going to do something like 75% white, 25% dark blue. On my second coat, I'll do like 50-50. So 50% white, 50% dark blue. And with each coat, I'm just mixing in more of my dark blue. And this is just going to cut down on the total amount of coats necessary. And it's also going to, give it a more solid look. Those are some of the first things that come to my mind. And then also just like using high quality brushes as well. The Angelus brushes are great. I also love Princeton brand. If you're using like the super cheap value packs from Michaels, things like that. Sometimes those aren't as high quality, but that's not to say never buy any brushes from Michaels, don't buy any of the value packs, anything like that. But if you get some of the real discounted ones that are real cheap, those can be lower quality. So those are some of the things that come to mind for that. India Hawkins here says, for the outer sole of Air Force Ones, what should I use to recolor those, like from white to purple or from black to light blue? So being that the outer sole is going to be made up of rubber, I haven't found or seen anything that works to actually get the paint to last. Even if you try something like a scratch resistant sealer, a sole protector, adhesion promoter, any of that stuff, it's all going to be temporary. Paint just doesn't want to bond with rubber long term and still be durable. The silly little example I always give to that is that, there's kind of a reason that we still don't have colored tires. And so I don't know the exact process that is used when, for example, you might find a Jordan 1 I'm looking at nearby that has, an all gray outsole. So I'm not sure what part of the process when creating that sole, where that is, dyed from. I assume it probably starts off as white. because it's not painted. So I'm not sure in what part of the, the factory process that is done, but paint wise and, sort of what's at our fingertips, haven't really, found anything that works that's actually going to hold it long term. Clyde Corbin here says, I keep seeing videos of people dyeing sockliners with wool daubers. What are they using and what do you think is the best method? So they're using, you can just purchase the wool daubers from Angelus now in like a 5-pack. And they used to come, I believe the Angelus suede dyes came with the wool dauber was attached to the lid. And so I think people for a long time were doing suede dyeing the sockliners. And now I think that more people are just making a mixture of paint and 2Soft and then dipping the wool dauber in there and applying it on the sockliner like that, mainly because it looks cool on video, the way that you just sort of rub it across and it sort of fills in all of that fabric. My issue with the suede dye concept is I believe that dye, anytime you touch it, it's always still going to rub off a little bit. So, if you were to dye an all white Air Force One sockliner, a different color, red, for example, I think that red is always going to be coming off onto your socks. Whereas if you heat set it with, the 2Soft mixture, you can make that pretty permanent. So I can't say that I've done the suede dye and then, actually worn test it. But I believe that would always rub off a little bit. Mike Parr here says, what if we prep more shoe than we need to paint, like in a swoosh drip design? So if you're doing, an all white Air Force One and you plan on just doing, a drip pattern or something like that, a couple different things you could do. You could first tape off everything except where you're going to do your drip. So actually trace that out, mask everything else off, and then, prep inside the tape. Now, an issue with that is that, if you're prepping along your tape, chances are your tape's going to lift a little. It's hard for it to stay intact if you're going to be rubbing across it, violently prepping. So that is a downside to that, to where then you would almost need to retape it. Another thing you could do is just over prep some of the surrounding area a little bit. Try not to, if it's an all white Air Force One, prep it hard enough where you reveal some of that white or that gray leather underneath, that undercoat basically, because you wouldn't want to have that as an area where you're not applying any of the color for the drip. And then now you were hoping that was factory white and now you have to find a solution for that area. So I would usually go the route of just trying to maybe trace out with something like a Frixion pen, which is just thermoactivated. You can erase it just with heat. Drawing out where I plan on doing my drip, prepping within that area, and then being good to go from there. Just make sure that you're not over prepping in areas that definitely won't be seeing any paint. That is what I would do there. Vlad here says, hey man, what's the process for making your own custom stencils specific to one shoe type size, something not available on Google? So Vlad, can you give me a more specific example of what you mean specifically, just so I can make sure I answer the question correctly? Because what is the process for making your own custom stencils specific to one shoe type size, something not available on Google? So are you saying that the logo isn't available on Google? Maybe it's like your own logo or something like that. Your own custom specific stencils. Yeah, let me know what you're trying to do specifically, and then I could hopefully answer that a little bit better. Sterling here says, what can you do when you completely botch a shoe, like they are bad? The nice thing about paint is, although it's not a fun process and it's a very messy process, you can strip it all down. You know what I mean? You could acetone it all off and start all over. You can also make a pretty funny video about that as well, because depending on what the shoe looks like now, if it looks halfway decent and all of a sudden you start the video by removing the paint, people are going to be, what are you doing? You just ruined all your hard work. But then you do something even better. Then all of a sudden now people follow you on a journey. That's a cool little video. So something that you can do there. Ron, how you doing, buddy? Glad to see you back. Can't wait for the new video coming this week. Yes, sir. Next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time for Customize and Chill Episode 4. Nick Good here says, I'm just about to get into airbrushing. I watched quite a few of your videos, especially the one on your recommended products. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Thank you, Nick, and really appreciate you checking out those videos and leaving some kind words here. And good luck on getting going airbrushing. Even if in the video it does look, airbrushing can be very overwhelming for somebody who's potentially never done it before. Go into it knowing that there's going to be hurdles and knowing that you can overcome them. You know, don't get too frustrated to where you don't want to airbrush because it's not, everything's not flowing perfectly for you when you're just starting out. You know what I mean? Go into it knowing that, hey, this is a new tool, all right? This is going to take some figuring out. I just have to get used to it. And the most important thing you could do with your airbrush is just get familiar with it, get to know it. It's going to be about time holding that airbrush. You have to put in those hours to where you really start to know when something's going right and something's going wrong. It's like when you have kids. You know what every little when you have a little infant, you know what every little cry is. That means that baby's hungry or that baby needs a diaper change. Whatever the case is, you start to know that with your airbrush as well when you spend enough time with it. So, bet you didn't think that somebody would compare love for an airbrush with babies today, did you? Let's see here. JC Texas Art, what's up from Laredo, Texas? When is your next sneaker contest? That is a great question. We have not had one since the Heritage Contest, which I think was at the beginning of last year. So we will have to do another one of those soon. We will have to do another one. Those are always fun. Let's see here. Dewey here says, when prepping the shoe before painting, then how do you know it will be 100% good to paint and won't end up cracking? I acetone until sticky and wet, then let them sit for 20 minutes and they end up cracking. So you do probably want to let them sit a little bit longer than that. Even if they feel dry to the touch, they're probably still not dry enough in theory. It's not that, you're not trying to apply the paint as fast as possible when they just got acetoned. It's not like the paint works better if it's when the shoe's sort of damp from the acetone. That's not necessarily the case. So there's a few factors that it could be, Dewey. Post, it sounds like you're doing a lot of the prep work correctly. You know what I mean? It depends what material are you painting. I can't always answer this question as if everybody's just painting the upper leather parts of an Air Force One. Some people might be painting different parts of different shoes. So I do need a little bit more context, but in general, let's assume that you did the prep correctly. If the prep was done right, the next issues that could make cracking occur is the paint being applied too thick, too many layers of paint just in general, and not enough dry time in between layers. So just in between layers of paint, whether you're hand painting or airbrushing, it's a good idea to leave, at least 20 minutes or so of dry time for those coats. So those are the first things that come to my mind for why paint could be cracking. But it also could be that potentially not enough prep. You know what I mean? If, in my opinion, just acetone isn't enough to make Air Force Ones last. So that's just an example. XA Chris Custom says, someone came to me for advice as they were just starting customizing. I sent them to your way. I'm still learning myself. Only been customizing a year. Well, very cool, Chris. Glad, congratulations on being able to do it for a year, whether you're still doing this as a hobby or as a career. It's pretty cool to, hit a year of doing something like this, a really fun craft. So good for you. And thanks for sending people our way. We definitely appreciate that. Let's see. Do I need to tape the inside skins of the boots? You need to tape the insides if you don't want to get any paint on there. And some shoes have holes on the outer where if you're spraying the outer of a shoe, like let's just say a Jordan 6, for example, I don't have one at arm's reach. There's one on the other side of the studio, but there's actually holes on the outside of it where if I'm airbrushing the outside, it'll get paint on the tongue. So there's a few shoes that are like that. So yeah, if you don't want to get any paint on the insides, build yourself a little inner wall, and then this way you won't get any paint on, you know, those inner walls or your tongue or sock liner, things like that. Does cleaning the airbrush with water work the same as cleaning with airbrush cleaner? No, it's better to use an airbrush cleaner. It's not a direct one-to-one comparison, but it's kind of almost like asking, can you clean everything with water, or do you actually need cleaning solutions to clean your stove? I mean, yeah, to some degree, you can clean off a stove a little bit by just using water, but you're going to get a lot cleaner if you use the correct solution, you know? So I understand that airbrush cleaner isn't the cheapest thing around. So just a homemade concoction that you can make is just take like 90% water and 10% Fabuloso. Just mix that together in an old, you know, airbrush cleaner bottle, and then that's something that you can just constantly make yourself rather than needing to go and purchase a however much airbrush cleaner costs nowadays for a bottle, $8 to $12, depending on the different brands and things like that. So there's something that you can just make for yourself. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Royalty Custom Sneakers. I started a YouTube channel back in November and have been trying to keep a consistent schedule for the almighty algorithm. Any tips for creating consistent content that isn't redundant? Yes, the never-ending battle that all of us creators are going to, trying to be consistent. One thing that I'm currently in the middle of, that I'm trying to do to be consistent, because last year on YouTube, unfortunately, I had two separate 3-month breaks just because I had so many projects that I couldn't get around to editing any videos. So funny enough, the Dior Jordan 4 video that we posted last week and the Goku Jordan 3s that are a part of the video coming out next week are shoes that I did last summer. And this other video that I talked about at the start of this live, where it's a celebration of hitting 200,000 subscribers on YouTube when we announced that design contest, that was last March. So believe me, I totally get it. So what I'm currently doing is I'm just trying to batch videos together as much as I can. So I'm trying to do each phase of the video creation process in groups. So up until we did a video at the start of football season this year, how to prep a cleat in under 1 hour, which was probably something like our 270th video on YouTube. I've never scripted a YouTube video. I've had, you know, bullet point notes or something like that sometimes, but I've never had an actual script to follow. And I think that might partially be due to, you know, I didn't know any better when starting out. It was just, hey, let's just put out videos. You're not going to worry about a script. Let's just first do it, and we'll improve as we go. And now, just over time, when you do so many videos, not that it becomes redundant, but you want to improve yourself. So I said, you know what, let me try to start scripting out my videos, see if I can improve the overall flow, if I can increase viewer retention, if I can keep the video interesting the entire time. I'm very long-winded. Very early on in our YouTube career, people said that the videos were too long. I needed to get to the point earlier. I really struggled with when Jason and I would film. Since we posted one video every week for years, we would sometimes almost treat the beginning and ends of video almost like news segments, talking about upcoming stuff at the start of the video, or stuff that went on and since we last talked to you at the start of the video, and same thing at the end of the video. And so sometimes I think that could hurt retention. Whereas, you know, if somebody new is finding your video and you don't dive right into the meat and potatoes per se, you know, you could lose them as a viewer. So just trying to improve the overall pacing and stuff of videos. And so I'm trying to script, 4 to 5 videos together. And then after I have those scripts, then I'm going to try to film 4 to 5 videos together, all of the talking bits that aren't a part of the painting or whatever. And then I'm going to try to edit them together so that I can, just batch as much stuff together as humanly possible. I think that's where you can be your most efficient, when you can batch stuff. So just, coming up with the ideas and then going from there. Also, if you just need to come up with ideas, play around with that Chat GPT. The stuff you can do on there is crazy. You just it works the best when the user gives it the best, prompts, but you can just put something as generic as, give me 10 video topics about custom sneakers for YouTube videos, and it'll give you a ton of good ideas, where instantly, that'll really get the brain juices flowing. So yeah, I think that when you can start to group things together, batch them together, that's when you can start to get ahead. And so, we've been on YouTube since 2018, and never in 5 years coming up that we've been on YouTube, really, never once have we been more than a week ahead on videos. So I would love to try to get a little bit ahead. And this year I'm going to, try to, commit to a better schedule, and, hopefully release a video every other week, do a live stream in between on those weeks where I'm not releasing a video. So like this week, there was no video because there was one last week. There's one this upcoming week. Sandwich a live stream right in there. So do one of these DCF lives every other weeks, and just try to, commit to a schedule like that, and just, be honest with yourself on what's doable, and then just, try to make sure you're able to light a fire underneath yourself to get going and want to stick to that regimen. So good luck, buddy. Nat here says, can you custom paint a monogram logo on my sneakers? If so, how would I contact you if I don't have Instagram? You can shoot me an email. My email is in the description of every video. It's just contact@dejesusinc.com. Send over that monogram. I'll take a look at it. Let me know what kind of shoes you want to do, and we will go from there. Vlad here, following up from that earlier stencil question. Examples would be a custom Warhawk pattern for a youth shoe cleat, or designing something that's not already a logo online. Anything stencil from scratch. Okay, cool. Totally get it. So let's say you're trying to do a Warhawk stencil that's on, maybe a weird shaped cleat, or just a different shaped shoe. Something that you can do. Then that I would probably do is I would take a picture of the cleat from the appropriate angle where you plan to do the logo. Then what I would do is I would bring it into something like Procreate on an iPad, or into Photoshop, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. But you would need some type of design-based software like one of these. And then what I would do is I would try to find something that is relatively similar. So for example, in your example, you're doing a Warhawk pattern, so I would try to Google Warhawk stencil, try to see what comes up, try to find something that is within the ballpark of what you would like to do, then copy that image on top of your cleat or your shoe, and, just ballpark it. And then from there, you could start to draw out, with your stylus, your Apple Pencil, whatever you might be using, or just in Photoshop, start making the necessary tweaks based on, the contours of the shoes and things like that. That is the way that I would go about doing it. You might need to just take a picture of the silhouette where you plan to make the stencil, and then just start tracing it out, with some black line work, and then you can create a stencil from your own drawing. That is the way that I would go about doing it. But great question, Vlad. Bearded Bro, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Good to see you. I am excited to show you the pictures that I got from, your 90s theme design. I actually had a fellow Chicagoan, Canary Kid. He wanted to shoot some pictures of them. And boy, oh boy, did he get some sweet vintage shots, man. You are going to dig them. You are going to dig them. Anthony, how you doing, buddy? Appreciate it, man. Beard is looking solid. Thank you, man. I hope you're I hope you're trying to get your last little remnants of sleep before you're getting going on the next half of the year or whatever it is with baseball season, man. So hopefully you're doing well, bud. What's your process for making your own custom reusable stencils? How do you come up with the design? So I usually like to the way that I like to do a lot of my reusable stencils is, for example, like one of the first ones that comes to mind is an aquatic pattern. So when I wanted to come up with the first shoe I did that on, it was sort of like a beach theme. And so I wanted to have different size bubbles because sometimes I like to do different colors and different sizes and things like that. So I might want, I might want something really, really loud, like a gold or a silver, and I might want that to be a specific size bubble if I'm doing an aquatic. So I may want that to be, really large bubbles or really small bubbles depending on the design. And then I wanted to have a wave pattern as well. And I'm going to have those in different sizes so that I can do different colors with them. And yeah, that's how I go about doing some of them. There's other ones where there's not repeating designs at different scales. Sometimes it's, like we have a lightning one, for example, and it's just a bunch of different, there's lightning streaks and, kind of little cool electric glows that you can create with it and stuff, and different thunderbolts. So it just depends on what the design sort of calls for, and what in my head I think would be cool, whether it's kind of like symbols like that. That's what I'd call that one. Like our lightning stencil has sort of a bunch of symbols versus an aquatic has a bunch of different sizes. Let me grab those, for example. So just for reference sake, this is like an aquatic one that I was mentioning where we have three different size bubbles, you know what I mean? Extra large, real small ones, medium size. Same thing with the waves, different scales depending on, this works great because I can use it on a huge NFL player's cleats, or I can use it on little kids' shoes as well, whatever the case is. So a lot of ours are like that. Here's a brush stroke one, so I'll have it in, different sizes. And yeah, that's the way that we go about doing these. Here's a Joker one, so I wanted to have a bunch of repeating ha-ha-has, different size honeycombs, a why so serious, some of the Joker faces and things like that. So really just when I don't already have something for a specific theme, and I'll say, cool, I'm gonna go ahead and try to put something together, and we'll go from there. Just to create a little bit more intrigue in the background. Okay, so Dewey was referring to a leather Air Force One earlier. Yeah, so, assuming you're just talking about painting the upper, the leather parts, those are some of the things that could have happened that can cause that cracking. Hi to Jesus. Hope you had a great day. Can you make your stencils without a printer or whatever it's called? So if you're saying vinyl stencils, you do need a vinyl cutter for those. If you're saying reusable stencils, those are made with a laser cutter. But if you don't have a vinyl cutter to create stencils, a few different things you could do. You could do the tracing method. So we have 2 videos on our YouTube that you can just search up, like DeJesus image transfer, and that'll show you how to use tracing paper, and you're just tracing it directly from your phone or tablet, whatever the case is, your logo or whatever you need the design to be, and you can just transfer it onto your shoes. Super simple. Or you could, a similar variation to that is you could overlay tape on top of, your phone, tablet, and sketch out your design, because you'll just turn up the brightness on your phone, draw it on the tape, and then you can cut it out from there, with an X-Acto knife. So that's another option. But yes, I wish I bought a vinyl cutter much, much sooner in my journey, because I didn't have one for the first. I think I got it in 2015, but was too scared to use it. Didn't know what the heck I was doing for at least a year, so I really didn't start using one until like 2016. And there wasn't they weren't as common with customizers, and now anybody, like, pretty much when you start out customizing, that's one of the first things you buy. Nobody was really, seemingly from what I saw, there was also less people doing like video stuff in general. You were only seeing the final product on Instagram, but it didn't really seem like many people had vinyl cutters a decade ago. Jonathan Lincoln, can you give me some ways to help me get business customizing? Was busy and all of a sudden it's kind of slow. Any tips? Yeah, absolutely. So some of the first things that I like to consider. I would say, what are some ways that you can get more eyes on your work in general coming up? So one of the best things you can do that isn't, I wish it was more a staple for all customizers to do, but going to sneaker conventions. So on the podcast that I do with Sean and Zach, Color Me Fresh, and It's Bald Boy, called It's Inspirement on YouTube and all other podcast platforms. We actually just had an interview with Tom Bowman, who's now a sneaker customizer. He tattooed for 17 years. He was on the tattoo show called Ink Master, and we just had him on an episode yesterday. Great chatting with him, super cool dude. And he was just talking to us about he actually was going to a convention this weekend. He was actually going to a tattoo convention, and he's doing less tattooing nowadays because he's doing so much shoes, and he's not even tattooing at the convention. He's just bringing shoes to sell and display and everything. So if there's any type of convention, he does a lot of Comic-Cons and things like that. If there's any type of convention that you can get to where there's going to be a ton of people at once that you can show off your work, that is something that I definitely recommend. Now is a great time, if you're less busy, to create something really cool for yourself. It's very hard for a lot of people to find time to create custom shoes for themselves, but now you can be a walking billboard when you then wear those custom shoes. And another thing that you could do is now start to repurpose some of your old content. You know what I mean? If you captured some video of old pairs that you did, now you could start to repurpose some of those videos, put them together in new cool ways, do new, trendy little videos on Instagram Reels, TikTok, things like that. I truly believe that if you're consistent with your content on platforms, like if it looks like you kind of never stop working, you're always going to be busy. If you're always putting out new content and new ways for people to find you, you're always going to continue to get more business. So even if you're posting old work and you're always consistent with your content, as long as your work's good enough, you're pretty much always going to be in demand. So as important as it is to as important as it is to make sure you're always putting out new cool designs and trying to one up yourself and stay on top of trends and create sort of the next big thing, it's also just equally as important that you're consistent to the point that you're always giving yourself a chance to be discovered by new people. I think that's the best way to shorten everything I just said. You need to give yourself a chance to be discovered by new people by always being consistent with your content. So those are some of my tips and recommendations, Jonathan. Good luck, buddy. Jamie F here says, hi, newbie here for canvas and non-leather shoes. Do we still prep with sanding down and acetone? So if you're working on canvas, Vans or something like that, you do not need to sand those down. Quite frankly, you don't need to do any prep. A few people do a couple different things with Vans as far as shaving them down and things like that. But in terms of acetone or sanding, you don't need to do any of that on canvas, fabric, prime knits, any of that type of stuff. My buddy Jay here says, what do you do for your backdrop rolls? So I actually don't have multiple backdrop rolls. What I actually have been doing for a long time, Jay, is I take the big roll of I have a 24-inch roll of Oracal vinyl, the 811 vinyl that I use, and I'll just roll that out and shoot my shoes in front of there and then Photoshop the background to different colors. So I don't have, just because I don't have a lot of photo backdrops come in huge, like 4 or 5 foot rolls. If I had more space, I would love to, have just a dedicated photo setup that I could quickly swap those out at a moment's notice. But yeah, I don't have a specific setup for backdrop rolls. I just do a white one, and then I'll Photoshop color onto the background from there. Yep. Henry, how you doing, buddy? Henry came to the DCF experience in April, so that pertains to his question here. Henry says, what's up? When do you prefer to use vinyl stencils that stick to a shoe versus the already made stencils like you gave us in the class? So I'll use vinyl when I'm doing a specific logo. So for example, if I'm doing a sports team show and I need a Chicago Bulls logo or the Lakers logo or any sports team or any big company, and I need a clean, proper logo, that's when I'll use a vinyl stencil. Or if I'm doing, maybe certain designer prints, a Dior, an LV, something like that, that's when I'll use vinyl. But when I'm just trying to create texture and depth and intrigue in a background, I'm going to opt for, one of these airbrush stencils just to add a little flavor to the background. So we call this our sleigh camo. So if I'm doing, a camo pattern on a pair, I'll just use something like this rather than creating vinyl stencils of all the little camo shapes. This is much faster, and I just enjoy the look of these. I like what you could do with them, how you can control the flow of the different colors of paint, make some appear, more vivid than others. So yeah, I like that flexibility of using those. Great question though, Henry. Nicholas, what's a good price to sell custom shoes when first starting out? What a great question. How would I say to answer this? I think when starting out, it's truly not about the money at first. You first need to prove there's a demand for the product. So when you're starting out, it's hard to say that you're going to get paid an appropriate or fair wage for your time if you're just starting out. Now that's not the end all be all. There's a lot of people who are incredible artists that, their first pair of shoes, it might look like $1 million and they can sell them for a huge lump sum of money. But if you're just starting out and you spend 10 hours on a pair, you know what I mean? Is it fair to say that you're going to get $40 an hour for your 10 hours of work and you'll be able to sell them for $400 plus the cost of the shoes? Chances are probably not. So when starting out, I think it's important to continue to fund the dream. You know what I mean? Continue to fund the next pair and things like that. Make enough money that you can pay for your supplies and keep going to make that next pair. You know what I mean? And just get more experience under your belt. Get familiar with your artistry style. Go through the trials and errors of making multiple pairs. And then over time, that's when you can start to charge much closer to what you're worth. I truly can say I didn't charge what I was worth until 2019. So like 8 years in, I can truly say I did not charge what I was worth till then. For a multitude of reasons, whether it was trying to be competitive within the market, you know what I mean? And yeah, I definitely was undercharging for a long time. So then when you start to charge what you're worth, you just have to get comfortable with people saying no and being okay with that. And some people almost being surprised at the price, but just knowing that that's what it's worth and knowing, the skills that you have, that the right clientele will find you for sure, without a doubt. So when you're just starting out, truly just continue to make sure that you're able to continue to buy your supplies and continue to fund the dream, like I said, and get to that next pair and just keep going. You just need to get that snowball rolling down the hill, and then it'll pick up steam. That snowball is going to get bigger and bigger, but don't get caught up on trying to sell pairs for above your price range when you're starting out, because that can, hinder your progress, because then you might not be doing as many pairs. It's much more important for you to continue to do as many pairs as possible when starting out versus trying to make sure you get paid for your first however many pairs, an appropriate number. That's my take. You know what I mean? Great question, though, Nicholas. Raul here says, hi, bro. So I just bought my first set of Angelus paint, and I have a question about the durability when it comes to water resistance. So I noticed how fast goes out of the brushes. I just bought my first set of Angelus paint, and I have a question about the durability when it comes to water resistance, since I noticed how fast goes out of the brushes. I guess I don't understand the question, because I'm not sure if you're talking about, is the paint water resistant in general when applied to the shoes? It is. The paint's not going to come off if you step out in the rain. But because the back half of your question there says, I notice how fast it goes out of the brushes, that the paint is, maybe if you're used to painting with acrylics and you're talking about how this paint is much more thin, that might have to do with your question. Let me know, Raul. Let me know. Eddie, how you doing, buddy? Hello, Dillon. When you take orders for shoes, do you have your customer use just one of your social media platforms, or just email, or just your email? I cannot say I do this the most appropriate way, Eddie, but I consider myself very easy to contact. That is by design, that I am sort of an open book, in that I'm okay with people discovering me through any avenue. And if they want to message me on Instagram to order shoes, that's okay. Because you know what? At the end of the day, it's an extra step to have to say, I only take inquiries if you click the contact form on my website. Or I don't respond to Instagram DMs because I only respond to emails. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong for some artists or some businesses that do that. It's absolutely not, but it is one more step, and you just never know, in my opinion. I've had hundreds of orders conducted straight through Instagram DMs over the years. So if I were to say, hey, I don't accept DMs, people might say, you know what, I'm not in the mood to send an email right now, or go onto the website and fill out the contact form. Now, you as the viewer can 100% have an argument to say, well, then that if that person's not willing to even contact you through email, or, fill out the submission form on your website, then they're probably not going to be a customer. And you have a very strong case there, believe me. But at the end of the day, I read a book a long time ago talking about not introducing friction in business, and keeping things as simple as possible. So what I mean by friction is I'm adding friction by making any user commit to one more step, to have to leave Instagram to click the contact button and then email me, or to click the link in my bio to then go on my website to then send in a submission. That's friction between them contacting me and them purchasing a pair of shoes. So I'm not going to introduce friction if the quickest and easiest way is for them to just send an Instagram DM, since people send a bunch of those, every day anyways. You know what I mean? So just my input there. Just making sure I answered the whole question. Do you have your customer use just one of your social media platforms, or just your email? Yep. So any which way is fine with me. How do you take on 3 or more pairs of shoes? Great question, Greggs. I did a video last year. I believe it would have been in May. Not last year, forgive me. That would have been 2021. and I believe the video has a title close to something like "How fast can a pro customizer paint 4 pairs?" And I was doing 4 pairs of Martin themed Detroit Pistons Jordan 1s. The Pistons did a collab with Martin. They had like a Martin day, and they had some Martin merch, and they got some custom shoes made. And I'm doing 4 pairs, and I end up talking through the process on what I do, at least, to be more efficient, and how to, how I tackle in order like that. And I would tackle in order of 4 that way, or in order of 25 that way. I would do that same process that I do in that video. Now, all of those shoes are the exact same design, but I also, if I have, a bunch of Air Force Ones coming up, I'm going to prep all of those the same day. I'm going to tape all of those the same day. I'm probably even going to airbrush all of the base layers and base coats on the same day, just to be as efficient as possible, rather than saying, hey, I'm going to do this Air Force One today, then when I'm done with it in 3 days, I'm going to start the next one and do that whole process over. I believe that when you have that stuff right in front of you, get it all done at once. So when I already have the acetone and the cotton balls right next to me on my table, let's do as many things at once. When I'm already prepping all of my paints for the airbrush, let's do as many colors at once, and things like that. That's just the way my brain works, and that I like to try and do things to be efficient. So Yael, hopefully I said that right. Yael Ian says, can I use sandpaper on the shoes after using acetone on them? I didn't prep them properly, and I want to make sure I have a good base for my painting. Yes, you can, but I would acetone them again after, especially because you're going to want to make sure you remove all of the little, even if it's not visible, there's still going to be residue and things left behind from the sanding process. So sand them and then acetone them again, and then you'll be good to go. Hello, at DeJesus. I have been following and lurking for a long time now, maybe a year or longer, but I was very curious if you do different material swaps as well. So, long-time listener, first-time caller. Very cool. Welcome, I watch ads. Do I do material swaps as well? I do not. I only do painting at this moment. Material swaps are something I would like to get to in the future. I would. I have just not dedicated the time. Good evening from Lakeland, Florida. Today is my birthday. Happy birthday, Kevin. That is awesome, man. Happy birthday. Hopefully you have a great Friday night and a great weekend. Awesome, man. Thanks for being with us here today, Kevin. Okay, so I believe this is a follow-up to the water-resistant question. So is the color water-resistant and resistant in general over time without the finisher, or is it mandatory? So there's a misconception that finishers are that they really protect you. They really don't. Finishers really control the sheen. Now, the new Angelus 4 coats, at this point it's not that new, it's over a year old. Those are a polyurethane finish, so they provide a little bit more protection than the previous finishers. And the Liquid Kicks top coat as well is a polyurethane finisher. So that does have a small degree of protection, but not a lot. Finishers really control your sheen. They provide way less protection than you think. They're not a magical shield to protect your paint. What's really going to protect your paint is your process and application. So making sure that the shoes are prepped and that you apply your paint correctly. It's just a very, I believed this, the first shoe I ever painted, I didn't even prep. I remember thinking to myself, well, I'll just find the perfect finisher. You know what I mean? I'll just make sure that I apply finisher and they'll be good to go. You know what I mean? Who needs to prep them? So I myself thought that, hey, the finisher will save me. Who needs to worry about the rest of that? But that's not the case for creating wearable and durable art. You really need to make sure that they're prepped. And from there, yes, they are water resistant. You recommend you recommend that you use Rust-Oleum adhesion promoter. This product is not available in Israel on Amazon or eBay. And any chance, is there any alternative solutions? Yes. So just look up adhesion promoters. Okay. What you don't want 10 people a week message me they bought instead of adhesion promoter is spray adhesive. They're both in a can, and sometimes when you just search like adhesion stuff on eBay or on Google and you purchase the first thing, you might end up purchasing a spray adhesive rather than adhesion promoter. They are very different things. Spray adhesive is almost like a glue. It's used in like it has a ton of uses, but it's sticky to the touch to where we would use it in architecture school for sticking different types of papers together and things like that. So that's what spray adhesive is. That is not what you want for shoes. You want adhesion promoter, not adhesive spray. So just search up what adhesion promoters you can get your hands on and make sure it doesn't say spray adhesive. Have you considered taking a decon recon course like Shoe Surgeon? I absolutely have. I've told the story a couple times on live, but in early 21, so 2 years ago now, I purchased his online course. This was, I think it was like a $600 course for maybe like 30 hours of stuff. And then you also had to buy a supply box that had a ton of stuff. You had to buy, he gives a few different options for sewing machines. I haven't even put the sewing machine together. So I told myself that I was going to commit an entire month to practicing sewing and learning how to, decon and recon every day for a month and make a cool video about that. But I just never forced myself to do it. So I'm a continued dropout in that I haven't even logged in to look at the course curriculum for that Shoe Surgeon course. I need to do that to see. I logged in when I purchased to see everything that it came with and stuff, but when upon initial launch it was released day by day to where it tells you, hey, here's what you're doing on day one. I think you only had to commit maybe a half hour, an hour per day to do it, and just never ended up getting around to it. But I do want to. Thank you. Appreciate you. You're the man. Love your work. You're such an inspiration to keep it real. You're the reason I started doing shoes. Keep up the good work. Awesome, Jonathan. Very cool to hear. Thank you for the very kind words, my man. Gigi here says, what consistency would you recommend to get your airbrush paint to? How would you describe it? It's a good question. Not quite watery. I almost am tempted to say milky. The most important thing is that the paint can run through a mesh strainer. If your paint can run through a mesh strainer, it will run just fine through your airbrush. So it burns me a little bit every time I see videos of people pouring paint straight from the bottles into their airbrush. Now, that could be a matter of they have pre-mixed airbrush paints that are in the paint bottles. That absolutely could be the case, but sometimes if it's just regular paint that they're pouring in there, burns me a little bit every time, because you always want to make sure you even if you have, Angela's paint has gotten so much thinner over the years, so even if you have brand new paint and it's already very thin, you still just want to make sure to run it through a strainer to catch any potential clumps and things like that could be in there. So yeah, that's how I would go about describing it. I like this one. I like cereal. Me too. I would love to hear everybody in the chat tell me your favorite cereal. I'm going to tell you what my all-time favorite one is. It has been discontinued. Now, if anybody knows, I'm telling you, when I find people that discovered this cereal, they love it too. So it's not Rice Krispies, but Rice Krispie Treats cereal. Okay, so Rice Krispies comes in a blue box. Rice Krispie Treats cereal came in a purple box, and it was clumps of Rice Krispies with a little bit of that marshmallow flavor. And my goodness, that is my favorite cereal of all time. It hasn't been out in years, and I just absolutely love it. I'm trying to think of how many years back was the last time I had it, but that's my favorite one of all time for sure. Other than that, other favorite ones, I'm an apple cinnamon fan, so any apple cinnamon flavored cereal I enjoy. Apple Jacks, of course. I like frosted shredded mini wheats. Um, yeah, those are some of my favorites. There was boy, what was it? There was an apple cinnamon something that I really liked that got discontinued as well. It was apple cinnamon. What was it? Mm, I always tell my wife to be on the lookout for it too, but now I can't think of it. But yeah, I am a cereal fan as well. Up until college, I ate so throughout high school and grade school, all of that. So up until I was 18 and left for college, I think I had cereal almost every single day for breakfast. I sure did. I sure did. Patrick Willis here says, could you do a video maybe explaining when to use certain patterns for texture to help your customs pop? Absolutely. I do think we are well overdue for a video like that. The closest one that I could compare that I do think touches on how to use them, when to use them, things like that. Patrick, I know you've watched a ton of our videos in the past, but just in case you haven't seen this one before, uh, just trying to see what the title of the video is. The video is called How to Spice Up Your Customs with Texture Stencils. So it's 3 years old, and it is, let me see if you guys will, it's just auto playing the video, but that's the thumbnail. It's I believe his name is Broly from Dragon Ball. It's a pair of cleats, and that is the thumbnail for them. So how to spice up your customs with texture stencils. It's an old video, but I do think the information still remains true. I'd like to redo a video like that here soon. Jasmine here says, hi, Mr. DeJesus. Besides Too Soft, is there anything else I should use on clothing so the paint doesn't wash off? You probably would want to heat set it as well, but be careful that you don't burn the fabric. But other than that, no, you should be good to go. What different things inspire your work when making a pair for yourself? Well, boy, it has been a long time since I've made a pair for myself, unfortunately. I mean, honestly, the Chunky Dunkies might be the last pair. That was June of 2020. It's coming up on 3 years. And those were obviously inspired by, the pair of SB Dunks. I'm a huge SB Dunk fan, or just, Nike SBs in general. So those, but other than that, when I'm just, creating something for fun, I mean, really, sometimes I just need to, like, I've mentioned it in quite a few videos, but I'm not joking when I say I can get inspired to do a really cool piece just by finding the right color palette. So truly, if you just go on Google and you just search up cool color palettes, you search up abstract color palettes, you search up weird color palettes, you search up crazy color palettes, and just spend a little bit of time hopping around, all of a sudden you might just see a combination of colors that gets you going. And that's what works for me sometimes, truthfully. I could see something like that and say, okay, cool. You know what? I see the way that those 4 colors play together, and now I am just ready to get cooking. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's as simple as that. Yeah, I can't pinpoint. Sometimes with a question like this, I don't have a hipster answer of, I lock myself in a room and put on certain music, and then all of a sudden I come out changed. Or like Aaron Rodgers, I go to what did he do last week? He went to a dark room or a dark cave or something, some type of blacked out room or something for like 4 days to decide what he wants to do next in his career. I don't do anything that crazy. But yeah, great question, buddy. Ooh, somebody else knows about that Rice Krispie treat cereal. That was good stuff. That was good stuff. I miss it. I miss it. What are some challenges someone would come across with beginning airbrushing? Just getting familiar with, how much paint to use. So I think I can really answer this question well, because after doing a couple of our courses now, the DCF experience, a lot of people are airbrushing for the first time. And that feels like, when we talk to everybody who comes to the course on day one. I feel that's something that a large majority of people come to our course to really get familiar with. They want to feel comfortable on using an airbrush, and I think everybody leaves feeling a million times more confident. So something that I see and something that I like to help them with is it's sort of like the first time when you drive a car. When you get in, you almost think that you need to press all the way down on the gas to get going. But when you actually drive a car, anybody would know that's not the case. You really don't need to press down on the gas pedal a lot, right? Same thing with an airbrush. Most of the time, assuming you're working with a good airbrush, assuming you've already thinned and strained your paint, assuming all other things considered, let's assume that those things are intact. You really don't need to pull back on your trigger a lot to apply the right amount of paint. You definitely don't need to pull all the way back on your trigger when you're starting. So I can grab mine real quick just for example. Okay, so this is if you just press down on your airbrush trigger, just down, you get just air. As soon as you start to pull back is when you'll start to spray out paint. So what a lot of people think you probably need to do is right away just pull all the way back to spray the paint. That's not the case. You know what I mean? You really just need to press down first. Always just press down just to release air, clear out anything that might be here in your at your needle tip. And as you slowly start to pull back, you really never need to go much further than halfway, 75% of the way. There's really never a time that you need to pull all the way back, other than when you're cleaning out your airbrush. Then it's okay to spray it out as much as possible to make sure you're trying to clear out, the nozzle and things like that. But you you need a lot less pressure than you think. So those are some of the challenges in making sure that you have your paint set up correctly. So you thin out the paint and you strain the paint, and you're not just pouring it directly from the bottle. Those are some of the beginning challenges that can occur. And then cleaning it out thoroughly afterwards so that it's good to go, next time you plan to use it. Hopefully that answers that one. I used to paint with the non-water based paints, and the paint sticks on everything, even in the brushes. I needed acetone to take it out of the brushes, so that's my concern. Yeah, so that won't be the case here as long as you clean your brushes after use. Something that I've been enjoying the last couple years is a paint puck. Something you can buy on Amazon for, I think they're like $25-ish, but it has these little knobs at the bottom of this water cup that you can really get all the paint out of the bristles and things like that. So just something for brush maintenance rather than just leaving them in a water cup overnight. A little something like that goes a long way. Carlos says, what is the name of the podcast you do? So it's Inspirement on YouTube. I'll type it here in the chat real quick if anybody wants to check that out. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, all of those. Let's see here. Jay says, what are your thoughts on doing a collaborative shoe with your DCF classes after the classes wrap up, like a class project? I really dig that, man. That is really something cool. It's been so cool to watch. We're coming up on a year since you attended, and it's been really cool to see your growth over the past 11 months and some of the projects that you've landed. I'm so hyped for you. So I truly mean it. I know I said it when we had your course in April, but everybody who goes out of their way to attend this, like, I'm truly rooting for the rest of forever, and I'm here for you to help guide you in any way possible for the rest of forever. It truly feels like a family when we're there for that weekend. It's so much fun, and now after doing a few of them, it's so sad on Sunday night when everybody leaves because you've just grown closer and closer over the weekend. And yes, something like this that you mentioned would be a really cool way to do something after, especially after everybody's gone home and been excited to put some of the new things that they've learned into practice, then all of a sudden, if we can come back together and do something like that, that'd be really damn cool. So great idea, man. I love that. What tape do you use to mask mesh and or sockliners? I have tried several varieties, all with very limited success. What's worked best for me is gaffer's tape on sockliners. It depends on the sockliner. You know, a Jordan 3 has a different sockliner than an Air Force One and such. So yes, in most cases, gaffer's tape. Medical tape, I used to use a lot, but now I pretty much in all situations where I used medical tape, I now use gaffer's tape. And other than that, certain shoes work just fine, sort of with like that beige um, Scotch 2020 tape that you can buy like Home Depot. I think it's Scotch 2020 in like the contractor's pack. Yes, so those are my go-tos for sock liners. Rice Krispie Treat cereal was the jam. Ooh wee. Ooh wee. Do you play MTG? I feel very bad because I truly don't know what MTG is. I'm going to try to think, what would MTG be, Dylan? I'm not a gamer by any means, unfortunately. My younger brother is a huge gamer. He's a video game collector. MTG. Man, can't think of what that one would be. The only one that I do play every so often is some FIFA on Xbox. I buy the new FIFA every 2 years, all right? I don't buy it every year, but I buy it every 2 years. So I do have FIFA 23. I got that one at the end of last year. And it's funny, my brother Daniel, who is the gamer, was just telling me that one of his friends plays FIFA, and he was saying, you know, he plays the Ultimate Team mode and stuff like that. And so Ultimate Team is where you don't. I don't even play Ultimate Team, but I believe you sort of collect different players and different cards and then build almost like a super team. So you start off with a very basic starter kit, almost like you got a starter pack from Pokemon, and then you try to win enough games that you can unlock a Messi, a Ronaldo, and an Mbappe and things like that. And I said, "Damn, I wonder if that's how most people play FIFA." All I do is I go online and I play someone as Chelsea, and so I just pick my favorite team, and I go from there. I'm a very simple man. Will here says, "Do you reckon it would be possible to do a custom job on a pair of ice skates? If they were, I don't know what most ice skates are made out of. If they were leather, absolutely. But if they are made of plastics and rubbers, that's where you need to be a lot more skeptical. So it depends on the materials, but could be possible." Can you save the live for tomorrow? Yep, it'll be saved, and it'll be you can catch the replay at any time, anytime. Sean says, "Can you review my website with my customs and tell me what I can change? I'd appreciate it." Yeah, send me a link, Sean. Why not? We will check it out. We will check it out as a group here. Patrick Willis here. Thank you, man. This is what I love to see here in the chat. You guys helping each other out. So Game Up started off with the question of easy way to paint with Angelus neon paints. And then Patrick says, start with a pale version of your color, and with each layer get deeper into the color. So a very simple example. I'm going to grab some paints real quick. Right. So you can do this with any neon color. So let's pretend you're trying to paint Angelus neon yellow. What you would do is start laying down base layers of Angelus pale yellow. Now I know they don't have a pale every color. If you're trying to do the neon orange, there's not a paint color called pale orange. So what you can do is just take orange and white. That's all pale yellow really is. It's basically just yellow and white. So you start with a nice white and non-neon color as your base coat, and then from there start mixing in some of the neon color on top. So my first 2 layers I might do completely pale yellow, and then on layer 3 I might start to mix in, half of the actual neon color, and then on the next coat a little bit more, and that's how you build up to a finalized nice neon color. Otherwise, if you just tried painting this neon yellow on top of white leather, it would take you 10 coats, and all of a sudden the shoe wouldn't be wearable anymore, unfortunately. Okay, tons of great questions here in the chat today, guys. I'm trying to get to as many as possible. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight. What is the best way to get started with customizing shoes? So we have a video on our channel called 4 Easy Ways to Start Your Customizing Journey. I'm quite sure it's linked in the description of this video. If I double check, yes. If you go to the description of this video, we have some recommended videos, and there's one that's labeled Advice to Begin Your Customizing Journey. The principles and concepts that I say in that video still remain true today on exactly what I would do. So I would try to gather as many friends and family as possible, and see who would be willing to give me a pair of shoes to paint with either my preferred designs or their preferred designs, paint them for free for them, and try to start to right away make sure you're capturing that process of you creating these shoes for them. And now all of a sudden you have 10 friends and family members that can be walking billboards for you and your business, and hopefully they'll be able to spread the word about you. And then from there, while you're creating some of that content for them, you know what I mean? Whether it's your Instagram posts, your TikTok videos, things like that, hopefully more people just outside of your little network of friends and family can start to see your work. And, that's how you would start to be able to grow from there. If you're really going to grow, chances are it's going to be through, the power of social media nowadays. But at least if you can just gather some friends and family to donate you a pair of shoes, or go out and purchase, hey, tell your friends, if you go out and purchase a pair of Vans or Air Forces or Jordan 1s, I'll paint them for you. And, from there, you can start to do some really cool stuff. Or just ask them, hey, do you have any shoes that are in good condition or brand new just laying around that you'd be willing to let me paint for you? And so we talk about that in that video called 4 Easy Steps to Begin Your Journey. And that is still what I would do today. How you deep clean and maintain your airbrush when you are finished painting? Which parts do you soak, if you soak any? So all I do is spray out cleaner until when you put cleaner in the cup, you no longer see any paint color. So if I was just painting neon yellow with my airbrush, it would probably take me 4 times of just spraying cleaner through there, to where when I spray, when I put the clear cleaner inside the airbrush cup, it won't turn neon yellow right away. And when I do that, then I know, okay, there's no more paint residue inside the cup. It's clean enough. Now I just leave a little bit of airbrush cleaner in there overnight so that if there is any paint, it can't dry up. But other than that, I only deep clean it when I run into an issue, which isn't often if you maintain your airbrush and you clean it enough sort of in between colors and when you're done with a session for the day or whatever. So just spray out a bunch of cleaner. Just spray out a bunch of cleaner. Sean here says, I paint Air Force Ones. I do about 7 total coats of paint each section. Is that a lot of coats? Yeah, 6. It totally varies on shoe. It can vary on colors, a lot of factors. So 7 is right on the high end. If you said 10, I'd say that's way too much. But I usually, if somebody just asks me, what's the very general ballpark for most colors, most materials, most amount of coats I can do, I try to say that number is 6. So 7 is a little bit higher than that, to where I'd say that's probably a little bit too much. So if you're painting Air Force Ones, it shouldn't take you 7 coats. You're probably not mixing any white into your paint on some of those early base coats, and that's why it's taking you 7 coats. But if you mix in white on some of those early layers, you can chop off about 2 of those coats, and you'll probably only need 5 for just about any color. So hopefully that helps, Sean. David here says, I saw another YouTuber talk about chalk markers by Silent Art and liking it better than Posca markers. Your thoughts? Truth be told, David, I'm not a fan in general of Posca markers and markers in general on shoes. I think they're used incorrectly because a lot of people, there was an explosion of using them a few years back of doing the entire shoe in paint markers. And I don't believe that's how they should be used. If you are going to use them for minor little details and minor little line work stuff here and there, I think that's okay. But to paint an entire panel with a paint marker and things like that, I don't personally think that's the way to go. So I can't say that I'm a fan of them in general. So I would say anything that you want to do with a paint marker, you could do, in my opinion, just as easily with paint that's actually made to work with leather and things like that. So that's my take on it. I just think too often those come off a lot more easy than your Angelus paint. Carlos here says, you have 10 years or more of career. How do you still do one-of-one designs? How do you avoid repeating designs, textures, or color palettes? That's a cool question. I mean, art is infinite. So even if I'm, you know what I mean? I know that's a very basic answer, but even if I'm doing like, let's just say it's a Goku shoe. I try to do something different because one, it's not fun to do it's just not as fun for me to repeat a design that I've already done. So I say, how can I do a new spin on Goku? Like, for example, I've done so many Joker shoes over the years and so many on so many different silhouettes. So the first question I ask myself, assuming we're talking about like Heath Ledger's Joker, with the purple and the hexagon pattern and things like that. So I say to myself, what are the non-negotiable things, in my opinion, that have to be on a great Joker design? Well, I'm in my opinion, I want it to be a large chunk of it to be purple. I want to see that hexagon pattern. I want to see some of that ha print throughout. Those are the things that I love about a good Joker design. So now I say, well, what can I do differently than I've done in the past? I know I talk about this exact thing in a video. I have it, a picture of it framed in here. But I did a pair of, I might be able to pull it up here. Let's see here. Just because I think this is a good example. See if this works. Okay. So I had a request to do a pair of Joker cleats for somebody, and I right away felt I just wanted to do something different than I had done before. So I added these green stripes on the toe on top of the purple. It has nothing to do with the character. Nowhere in his outfit does he's not wearing a green and purple striped sweater. But it was just a way for me to get the green to interact with the purple in a different way than I had done before. So I think this right here is a good example of just wanting to not repeat what I've done in the past while still making sure that I'm keeping some of the non-negotiable important parts of a good Joker design going on this theme. I think this is a cool example of that. So yeah, and then other than that, you just try to say, cool, let me just scrap what I know about a good Joker design and think the opposite. So if I might run into a situation sometimes where, hey man, I've done a bunch of Joker designs recently, I have to do another one. all of them look purple, so I'm going to start with a different color instead. How can I start with, the white and make the entire shoe look like his makeup and decayed face and things like that instead of the purple? You know what I mean? Try to switch it up a little bit, just things like that. Sometimes, okay, I have to force myself to eliminate everything that I know about how I would like to do this in general, and just for the sake of seeing where we end up, let's start with sort of the opposite in mind when starting. So hopefully that makes sense. But great question. Great question there, Carlos. Chris Customs here says, let's see. Where'd comments go? I think there's going to be a little music playing for a second here, guys. Let me see. Okay. Just wanted to make sure I could pull up the comments again. Okay, Chris Customs here says, as I said, I've only been doing this a year. I just started using a strainer and it's been a game changer. I can tell I used too much paint previously because the difference and feel is phenomenal. That's awesome to hear, man. I'm glad that airbrushing is going much better for you. Glad to hear that. Helen here says, hello, I'm from Glitzy Garms in the UK. We have been watching you a long time and customizing. We don't earn big bucks, but feels good when people love our artwork. You're our mentor. Thanks. Very cool, Helen. And, congratulations on selling artwork in general, even if it's not for, what you would like to be considered big bucks. That will come one day. But the fact that you're able to sell your artwork in general now, you deserve certainly a pat on the back for that. You know what I mean? So the money will come with time. The money will come with time. I promise. If you're consistent and you're constantly growing as an artist, the money will eventually come. You just got to stick with it. So cheers to you, Helen. Colorways says, hey, Dylan, what let you know you could go full-time as a customizer? Great question, Colorways. I unfortunately don't have, sort of one of those. I think that, so I've seen this question asked a lot, maybe to certain like YouTubers, not even in the customizing space, but people who are just vlog on YouTube. How did you know you could go full-time with YouTube? Things like that. And sometimes the answers are, well, I gave myself a deadline of, if I can make X per month, then that can be more than my regular job, so I'll leave my regular job. Or maybe if it's a 30% decrease in what I make at my regular job, I'm at least willing to take a chance, whatever the case may be. I didn't have one of those hard and fast rules that, hey, when I make $10,000 a month customizing, that's when I'll leave. That's when I'll go full time with it. Because when I was starting out, making $10,000 a month customizing was not in the realm of possibility for me. So I had finished my third year of college. I went to school to study architecture. I still had 2 years left because the Bachelor's of Architecture where I went at IIT was a 5-year program. I started customizing in the fall of my second year. So I had been going to school and customizing for about a year and a half. And anytime I was at school, all I could think about was getting back to shoes. And all I could think about, I was so excited to, in class, respond to clients, post to Instagram, things like that. Be editing photos on my laptop of shoes, things like that. This is, in the early 2010s. So sneaker blogs were still real popular. So instead of paying attention, being on Sneaker News, Nice Kicks, Kicks on Fire, whatever the case is, all I was thinking about was shoes. And anytime I was working on shoes, architecture and schoolwork was the furthest thing from my mind. So as I was in that first year and a half when I was still in school and just starting out customizing, I would continue to get busier and busier because more people would find me. And I eventually realized there's no way for me to give my all to both. It's architecture school is way too much of a commitment that I can't half-ass it. or I'll quickly fail. So I knew I had to pick a path. Like, just the way everything worked out, I was forced to pick a path that I would have to severely, slow down on the shoe stuff and turn more people down, or tell people, hey, there's going to be a much longer wait, whatever the case is. But I just wouldn't be able to put out as many shoes if I wanted to focus on school. And I knew that if I didn't put out as many shoes, well, the business wasn't going to grow. So I just knew that I knew where my heart was, truth be told. And so I was, that would have been summer of 2013. So I was 21 years old. So I know that I was in a much different position than a lot of people who maybe consider turning something like this, art in general, into a full-time career, in that I was 21. I didn't already have a mortgage, a family, kids to feed, things like that. I was still living at home at that point. So the decision for me wasn't as hard on what to do. Sort of the big things for me were, boy, oh boy, it is not going to be fun having this conversation with my parents, telling them that I'm ready to leave school. But thankfully, for a year and a half, my parents already saw me start this business and slowly saw it start to grow, because I was, working out of their house, and they would constantly see new shoes coming in, and me constantly busy. It wasn't just me walking up to them one random day and say, I'm leaving my lifelong goal of becoming an architect to pursue tap dancing. You know what I mean? It was already something that they had saw me do. And I feel, thankful that I had that, hey, you guys have seen this. I got to give this my all. This is where my heart is. And I got very, very lucky that, shout out to Mama and Papa DeJesus, very supportive parents right away, said, give it your all. You know what I mean? Go after it, go get it done. And them, along with my wife, of course, still my biggest cheerleaders to this day. So I know that's not the case for everyone who wants to tell their loved ones that they want to pursue something like this. So I don't take that for granted, and I do feel very grateful that that was my experience. Great question. Game Up says, cooking up any new stencils? We have one dropping next week. So in the Customize and Chill video, I'm using this really cool texture streak stencil, and that's going to be releasing next Wednesday. I'm super excited about that one. Alan says, hi, Dylan. Is it safe to set up an airbrush down the basement near the furnace? I would recommend getting an airbrush booth. You can get one for a tabletop. They're not that big. And I think that is the proper way to airbrush in your home, if you plan on doing it regularly. Otherwise, not everybody has a garage, but can you set up an airbrush booth in your garage? Do something like that. But I wouldn't just airbrush without an airbrush booth at this point, because even if you may think, oh, I'm just spraying on a shoe right in front of me, that paint and those chemicals are getting everywhere. So Colorway is following up there. Hey, man, sorry. I think the better question is, how did you know it was time to go full time? I just knew that that's where my passion was. I knew that, shoes that was where my heart was. And that's what I wanted to give all of my effort to. It was already growing, and I had already built you could call it a business. It was very much just a hobby, but I already had clientele when I was only giving it, a few hours per week, because I was so busy with schoolwork and stuff like that. What would happen now if I gave it all of my time? So that is how I knew. Albin here says, yo, is it important to use adhesion promoter after acetone and sanding? Thanks from Sweden. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I always recommend using it. Okay, guys, we're going to go about another 5 minutes here. 5 minutes or so. Final questions for the day. Somebody asked me to check out their website. Did they ever send it in? I can't remember. I can't remember who that was that asked me, unfortunately. Awesome JMD here says, does using a heat gun make the paint stick more than just letting it dry? Nope, just let it air dry. That's the best thing that you could do. Just give it, 20 minutes or so in between paint coats. That is the way to go. Heating it does not make it stick better or anything like that. I've got some visitors. Coming over here? Yeah. What game?
That game was not to get the balloons everywhere.
The balloons everywhere? Oh, not right now, okay? But in a little, I will. You want to come say hi to the internet? Want to come say hi to the camera? Come here. Come here. Watch that yellow cable, okay? Good big step. Oh. Look at the camera, okay? Say hi, internet.
Hello.
Look at the camera, though, not the laptop. Look at the camera right there. Say hello.
Hello.
That's my little guy Dexter. Just turned 4. The big 4. Daddy's almost done, okay? Couple more minutes. We are winding down. Thanks for coming to say hi, buddy. Zina Williams here says, hey, D, my daughter bought airbrush paint from the Dollar Tree called Acrylology. Is that a good acrylic paint? I have not seen that before, unfortunately. I'm surprised my wife hasn't discovered that, because she for sure would send me a picture of that when she's at the Dollar Tree and say, check this out. Should we grab some to test it out? That's funny. I will have to check my local one and see. Delilah, you showing them paint? Come here. Come here. Hey, come my dad. Come here. Come here. Oh, here's my other one. Here's baby Delilah holding some. What color paint you got, baby? You got some brown paint? You got some chocolate paint? Yeah, they love playing with the big paint cabinet and stacking them up and stuff. Love, baby. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that, because I would love to just play with that and make a video for sure. Patrick here says, you mentioned earlier about going out to cons. If you did one, how would you set up the booth? So I will, this will be probably the last one we end with here, but I'm going to try to find some pictures of past booths that I had at cons. Now it's been, I haven't personally done any since like probably 16. So I'm going to try to grab some pictures real quick of some past ones. Let's see. This is a cool one. And then I should have some pictures of the first kind I did. I'll try to show. Ooh, you get to see the OG logo in some of these. But yes, I think make sure that you go with, it's hard to go. You have to find the right mindset of what you're going to do, whether you're going to just advertise your work or you're going with the intent to sell. It's hard to go with the intent to sell, because somebody might come up to you and love a pair of San Francisco 49er Jordans that you did, but you might have painted them in a size 10 and they need a size 12. So it's hard to go there with the intent of selling as many pairs because it's just so hard to predict what sizes people will want and stuff like that. But it's more about just going, passing out business cards, letting people see your work in person. That stuff is much more important. So, okay, so. Oh, you did? Which ones you got? Green Ranger and Trini? Cool. Okay, so I switch over here. This is the first con I ever did. This was at a high school. So I just had a printout of our logo, a bunch of stickers up there in front, and then, you know, I just built a couple little display boxes out of some wood, and then just had the shoes displayed on tables there. I even printed out some pictures, had them in little picture frames from the dollar store, I'm sure. And yeah, so that was the first one. This would have been 2013. This would have been later in that year again, just a printout of the banner, some display shoes. So this is why it's good to have display shoes as well, so that you can make sure you always have stuff to take to events, you know, on a moment's notice if things ever pop up. We even had picture books that you could flip through, photo books, and you know, you could see some past work, things like that. This is that same event. And then here's one. This probably would have been like the last one I did. So what we did is we stacked up the boxes and then draped you know, some fabric over it, and this way we could get more shoes on the table and, you know, create a little bit of height so it's not completely flat. And then we had slideshow on the iPad constantly moving with some of our past work, business cards, things like that. So yeah, those are just some ideas in general on what you can do for if you ever plan to attend a con, and they are a lot of fun. Highly recommend if you're looking to be featured in front of a new crowd, for sure. For sure. So, thank you to everybody saying hello to the kids. They haven't been on any videos in a bit. So, yeah, all right, that is going to do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of DCF Live. Really appreciate it. These are always a ton of fun. I've probably say this every live stream, but this year I got to hold myself to it. I need to make these more of a staple. I'm really going to try to commit to doing them every other week. I polled on my Instagram earlier this week, what is the best time on Fridays to do these? This is Central Time because I'm in Chicago. 10 a.m., 12 p.m. noon, 2 p.m. or 4 p.m. Far and away, 4 p.m. was the best, the most voted on. But you guys let me know here in the chat if you feel like there's, you know, maybe a better time earlier in the day for these when the majority of views would be available. I'd love to do it sort of at the best time that the most people could be here. But if 4 p.m. sort of as a winding down, a little late on Friday, works best for you guys, then we'll continue to do that. So make sure you... we'll see you guys in 2 Fridays then. But next week on Wednesday night, we'll have episode 4 of Customize and Chill, a really cool pair of Goku Jordan 3s. Make sure you check out last week's video on a pair of Dior Jordan 4s. And it's just a really cool journey video, I call it. And you get to see the process of a pair being made and the journey they took me on, because I had quite an experience with those. It was a lot of fun. So thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully everybody has a great, safe, happy, healthy weekend, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.